Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you've been tracking tech lately, you already know AI is absolutely exploding right now. But today, we're diving into the stark reality of who's actually footing the bill for this massive pivot. We're going to unpack the hard data behind Meta's monumental shift toward artificial intelligence, and trust me, it's creating huge ripple effects. This isn't just about balance sheets, it's about the sudden, drastic impact on the very people who built these platforms from the ground up.
Here's our roadmap for today. 1. Meta's Washington job cuts. 2. The AI restructuring. 3. The H-1B visa crisis. And 4. The 60-day countdown. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Meta's Washington job cuts. We're starting off with the completely shocking numbers that just hit the Pacific Northwest.
Meta is eliminating nearly 1,400 jobs across Washington state. And you know what's wild about this? The timing. This comes just days after CEO Mark Zuckerberg actually assured employees that he didn't expect any more company-wide layoffs in 2026. But despite that internal memo, which was obviously meant to calm everyone down, official WARN filings submitted to state authorities revealed a totally different story: a sudden, severe reduction in force. In fact, law firms are literally investigating right now whether Meta even provided the legally required 60 days notice for these cuts.
And here you can clearly see the localized devastation. Bellevue's Spring District is taking the absolute brunt of this, with almost 700 employees losing their jobs. Seattle and Redmond, they're seeing hundreds of cuts too, along with over 200 remote workers scattered across the state. Now keep in mind, these aren't just redundant admin roles we're talking about. The filings show these cuts are wiping out highly technical operational positions. We're talking software engineers, data scientists, IT staff, and content designers getting hit hard.
Now, on paper, the corporate severance package might seem pretty robust. You get 16 weeks of base pay, plus an extra 2 weeks for every year of continuous service, and you're officially kept on the payroll until July 22, 2026. But the way this was delivered, absolutely brutal. A lot of these highly skilled workers got the news via a sudden 4 a.m. email, literally overnight. Those who were already at the office or arriving early for their shift were just told to pack up their desks and leave immediately. Their badges and internal access disabled right then and there.
Section 2. The AI restructuring. Let's zoom out and see how this localized shockwave feeds into Meta's broader, global financial game plan.
So the obvious question we have to ask here is why? Why would a tech giant completely eliminate roughly 10% of its entire global workforce, about 8,000 people, right after promising stability? At the end of March, Meta had almost 78,000 workers globally. Cutting a tenth of that requires a massive, massive shift in underlying strategy.
Well, here's your answer. It's a hyper-aggressive pivot toward artificial intelligence. Meta is projecting up to $145 billion in AI capital expenditures this year alone. Let that sink in. That's $10 billion higher than they initially projected. They are locked in this fierce, high-stakes race against heavyweights like OpenAI, Microsoft, and Google. And to fund those billions for new data centers, cutting-edge AI chips, and generative AI tools, the company has to find the cash somewhere. The crucial takeaway here is that Meta is ruthlessly restructuring for efficiency. They are shutting down open roles and pivoting thousands of their existing employees specifically toward AI development. But unfortunately, if you're in a traditional software engineering or data science role that doesn't perfectly align with this new AI-centric vision, you're deemed redundant. This isn't just a company shrinking its headcount. This is a fundamental, drastic reallocation of both human and financial resources to achieve total AI dominance.
Section 3. The H-1B visa crisis. Okay, let's bring it back down to earth and look at the very real, immediate human crisis unfolding because of all this.
A recent 2025 congressional report actually points out a nationwide rise in unemployment across diverse demographics. For instance, Black American unemployment has hit 7.5%, but for Indian nationals here on H-1B visas, the situation is uniquely terrifying. Data shows that in recent cycles, Indian professionals accounted for nearly 70% of all approved H-1B petitions. And because of these incredibly strict per-country caps on permanent residency, they're facing an astronomical green card backlog. We're talking about people who have spent years, sometimes well over a decade, integrating into our communities, buying homes and raising kids, only to find themselves completely vulnerable to these sudden corporate shifts.
Just look at this viral social media post from a startup founder about a laid-off Meta employee. It perfectly captures the devastation on the ground. It describes an established family with a third grader in Seattle and an 8-month apartment lease in Bellevue. Their entire life completely upended overnight by a single 4 a.m. email.
And, as the Post painfully points out, Meta's stock went up on the news of these quote-unquote efficiencies. It's a really stark reminder of how the global AI arms race shatters real lives, far beyond the boardrooms of Silicon Valley.
Section 4, the 60-day countdown. And this brings us to what is easily the most critical and anxiety-inducing part of this entire ordeal. Under U.S. immigration rules, losing your job doesn't just mean losing your paycheck. It triggers a literal ticking clock, a strict 60-day countdown. These workers have exactly 2 months to find a brand new employer willing to sponsor their visa. And remember, they're trying to do this in a brutal tech market that's already seen over 110,000 layoffs in 2026 alone. If they can't secure sponsorship in that tiny window, it's over. They lose their legal right to be in the U.S. They have to pack up their families, leave their communities, and get out of the country.
So what are their options? Well, to buy some breathing room, step 1 is obviously trying to secure that new H-1B sponsor. But when that hits a wall, step 2 is filing for a temporary B-2 visitor visa. Theoretically, this lets them stay in the U.S. for up to 6 months just to keep job hunting. But here's the catch. Immigration lawyers are sounding the alarm that approvals are facing unprecedented pushback right now. Which leads us to step 3. U.S. authorities are demanding absurd amounts of paperwork, causing a massive spike in requests for evidence, and honestly, outright visa denials. The sheer friction from authorities right now is unlike anything we've seen in past tech downturns. When you lay it all out neutrally, the contrast is just staggering. On the corporate side, Meta gets exactly what it wants. Streamlined operations, tons of freed up capital for that $145 billion AI push, and a stock price that surges because Wall Street loves efficiency. But on the human side, you've got expiring visas, families being uprooted from their homes, and absolutely extreme financial panic.
And that leaves us with a pretty profound question to chew on. As businesses everywhere adopt more automation and Silicon Valley sprints toward this AI-dominated future, how on earth is the tech industry, and the wider economy, going to handle the human collateral? The very people who poured their blood, sweat, and tears into building these platforms are being displaced by the exact technology they helped create. This is a massive shift, and it's one that could eventually impact every single sector, not just tech. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I really encourage you to keep asking these vital questions as our entire landscape continues to shift.